And we're live, everybody. Let's kick this thing off. All right, let me get this up. And good afternoon, everyone. It's Friday, February 4th, 2022. This week we're talking about a little bit of Spotify drama, Facebook's bad day, and a little bit about the iMac Pro. Plus, we're making a couple of announcements. First at the beginning of the show, and then at the end of the show, because this is the iMore show. And joining me, as always, is iMore contributor Karen Freeman. Hey, Karen.
Hello.
And joining us today, not as our special guest, but as our new co-host, iMore writer Luke Filipovich. Hey, Luke.
Hello.
All right.
I'm here. I have the update now, the co-host update.
There we go. iMore show appearance generator 2.0 for Luke.
There we go.
All right.
I'm excited. I'm excited to get it going.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on board. So let's talk about Spotify first, because there has been some stuff going down without really getting into the politics of it, because frankly, that's a lot. That is a lot. But just to do a bit of a news recap, we've got Spotify essentially backing Joe Rogan, who they paid $100 million for, in no real surprise, over legendary singer and songwriter Neil Young. Neil Young had some problems with things that Joe Rogan was saying on his show about the coronavirus and the vaccine and all of that. And so he said, I'm going to pull my music unless you get rid of Joe Rogan. Obviously, Spotify backed Rogan and Neil Young left. So did Joni Mitchell as well. Apple and other streaming services wasted no time in engaging the troll engine.
Sure, yeah.
Putting up big sections saying, we love Neil Young, Neil's best, things like that. It was pretty funny that, but Spotify is facing a lot of, a sizable chunk of people saying they're going to cancel Spotify. Whether or not they actually will, how often do these things actually blow up with any long-term result? Who can really say? But yeah, Luke, you were telling me earlier that this has had some effect on at least your social group.
Yeah, I've had a few friends who, it's funny, my very close circle of friends, they've all used Spotify forever. And even though they all have iPhones, they've all used Spotify forever. And I've always kind of been on the outside using Apple Music. So when they share playlists with each other and stuff, I'm always like, just kind of like, all right, guys, fine. Don't worry about me. I'll enjoy my Apple Music and stuff. But recently, a few of my friends, my buddy Andrew, he finally got his first pair of AirPods, much like me, and has now been realizing spatial audio is kind of cool. Dolby Atmos is kind of cool. Oh wait, Apple has lossless audio, and Spotify Hi-Fi, which was like talked about a year or two ago already, still hasn't made its debut. So he switched over a few months ago before all this. And then yesterday we were just talking kind of about the whole situation. And a lot of my friends were like, we've been hedging for a while just because it seems like Apple Music, has been putting out new features and new things that people are looking forward to, especially like Dolby Atmos. If you haven't tried spatial audio, it is pretty cool. Not necessarily the best for all music types, but when it's mixed really well, it sounds really, really cool and really good. And so my friend group is like slowly making the change, it seems like, over to Apple Music, which is really nice for me because I finally get to be included in all of our playlist sharing and everything like that. And I'll finally be the top dog, I guess, when it comes to that, which is nice. But yeah, this whether this was the catalyst or not for some of them, it's interesting that like Apple kind of really beat to the punch the hi-fi, the high fidelity music. And it was interesting because like Spotify, I'm pretty sure announced it, if I remember correctly, and announced it first, and then it just hasn't come around yet. And so I think Apple did really good by kind of like sweeping, kind of stealing the thunder a little bit. Because if you're looking for audio quality on your streaming service, Apple and Tidal are kind of like the big ones now. And I mean, Tidal's not even that big in the grand scheme of things, but like those are the big ones that are actually offering, lossless or high fidelity audio. And Apple Music did it at no additional cost.
Right.
So far. They might up the, who knows, they might up the subscription fee at one point, but they haven't yet.
I want to talk a bit about that, actually, about Spotify Hi-Fi. I want to use this as kind of a tangent to go off on a little Spotify tangent, because that is something that came up again this week, as Spotify is still not offering a firm date for if and when it'll offer hi-fi music.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was about a year ago, I think it was last February, where they said Spotify Hi-Fi is coming, because we had been hearing at that point, the Apple's might be doing hi-fi music at some point soon. And there was a lot of discussion about what Apple going to price it at. And turns out no additional cost. And I think that may have really knocked Spotify down a bit. I think maybe the reason it hasn't come out yet is accounting.
Yeah, maybe, which seems crazy because Spotify's like, they have the money. It's not like
they.
I mean, at least I think so. At least their CEO certainly has money. So
yeah.
I'm not entirely sure of their financial status, but you would think Spotify's big enough that I don't know if it's the money thing necessarily, but I wouldn't be surprised if like it caught them off guard that Apple decided to include it and then not charge extra.
That Apple of all companies.
Yeah. Because like if Apple very easily could have charged a hi-fi or a high fidelity or a lossless plan, and people who wanted that would have definitely signed up for it. Yeah. And they didn't, which obviously is great for everybody. And I think that might be the stick. I can understand how that would be a sticking point, because I think Spotify definitely wants to charge more. I think that was probably the original plan when they announced hi-fi. They probably were like, oh, and it'll be a special hi-fi plan for people who want it. So I think that'll become, I think that's becoming an interesting tipping point right now that we're seeing. I mean, I know there's kind of this other sort of Neil Young versus Spotify catalyst thing, but I think like there are like slowly people are starting to realize that Apple Music maybe does offer a little bit more, especially if you're looking for a more high fidelity experience. I will say this though, I'm still curious if Apple hasn't raised its price for Apple Music since its inception, or am I wrong about that?
No, you're correct.
Since its inception. So part of me is curious if like the ongoing costs of offering lossless audio and more spatial audio and Dolby Atmos tracks and albums and things will eventually trickle its way down to the consumer. I mean, I would love it if it didn't, but I'm interested to see if Apple will ever toy with raising that subscription, the $10 for the individual plan. But I think as of right now, they kind of have Spotify in a bit of a weird place, especially with everything that's going on. So I don't think they would do it anytime soon, at least, to kind of, ride this wave of like cancellation / turmoil in the industry, if you want to put it that way.
So Karen, a question I've got for you is, first of all, do you have any thoughts on the Neil Young Spotify, Apple Music of it all?
I do. I'm not sure how much I want to say here, just to avoid political things. But I will say I have seen chatter on Twitter where people, because of the whole Spotify, Joe Rogan, Neil Young thing, have started looking into other services and sort of stumbled across Apple Music and said, "Wow, the audio is just so much better, and maybe I'll just stay here." So I just thought that was interesting, kind of like what Luke was saying.
I also thought it was funny because, and especially if you understand the history of Neil Young talking about this stuff, that in sort of a parting shot to Spotify, he also called out their bad, saying it more politely than he did, their bad sound quality. Because if you'll remember like 10 years ago or so, he came, maybe even longer than that, he came out with a device, and it was called the Pono, and it was this Toblerone looking yellow music player that had like a little touchscreen, and it had 2 headphone jacks, for headphones that, you could jack in 2 spots. And it's supposed to play higher quality audio. And I always thought, of course he would take a shot at audio quality on Spotify, because it's 320 kilobit per second MP3 over there.
Okay. So on the other side of that, my son is a huge Spotify fan, and I know he wasn't thrilled with what Joe Rogan said, but my son said basically, I don't listen to Joe Rogan. I don't care about Joe Rogan. But all of my playlists, everything is on Spotify. Like, I'm not switching. Like, I don't care about all that other stuff. So, there's different sides.
Yeah, when you talk, we talk about the Apple ecosystem, but it's not, Spotify has its own ecosystem in that sense.
That's right.
And if you're really tied into that,
Yes.
it can be a hard to leave, and
Right.
that's definitely a part of it too. Like I know some of my friends are, my friend Andrew already did. My friend Paul was kind of like, oh, I'm sort of on the fence though, because of all of my, Spotify, stuff he has set up, the podcast he does subscribe to and things like that. Yeah, so it's definitely an interesting change if you decide to go through it. But
yeah, very, it's been a very weird beginning to 2022, I have to say. Not weird, however, is our next topic, which is Facebook complaining about Apple. I love it when they do this, because I always think that this is really Facebook showing its hand. So as reported this week by our own Stephen Warwick, as noted this week by our own Stephen Warwick, Facebook was one of 4 companies that lost, or I shouldn't say Facebook, I should say Meta, because that's the company's name.
Right.
Boy, do I hate that. Still, but here we are. 4 companies dropped.
Meta, Snap, Twitter, and Pinterest.
All of those names together, they fill me with dread. But lost $278 billion in market value because of Apple's privacy changes. Good.
And although Snap, Twitter, and Pinterest didn't lose as much as Meta,
didn't
by a lot, for them it was about half of their previous market values.
Yeah. I think this is, obviously, Meta is blaming the iOS 14 privacy changes, and now iOS 15 privacy changes too. What is it? It was like app tracking transparency. That's what it is. And I just, that's good. It's like listening to them complain about this stuff. You're complaining about people having increased knowledge of who's trying to take their data.
How dare you not let me violate your privacy?
Better privacy tools. It's terrible. Why people not wanting us to know everything about them and being able to sell it without their permission?
Yeah.
How dare they? I unconscionable, inconceivable. I do try to approach things with as little bias as possible, but I hate Meta.
Yeah,
I have no compunctions about saying that, and I've said it before on this show, and I'll say it again. I hate them, and because I think they're a bad company that doesn't care about anything other than dollars. They don't care about user experience. They don't care about privacy, certainly. Imagine just the gall it would take to complain about better privacy for users. Like, really?
Yeah. And I think, Meta/Facebook has been, kind of like top dog in a lot of ways of the social media kind of landscape for freaking over 10 years now. Right. Like, I I think what we're seeing now, like we're seeing a change in the industry. Like I think Apple, has been pretty good at trying to kind of push forward that change in its own products and its own services and things. But I think I think we're on the precipice of seeing like a larger kind of change this way, where like I think more companies and more things are going to start caring more about this kind of stuff, because I think we're proving now that it's something that like people definitely will look at when they buy devices, when they buy into services. They will look at how their data is kept, how well does that company's track record of data storage and data and privacy rules have been enforced. And I think we're kind of on the precipice of that becoming a more like talked about subject. I feel like the tech industry and tech nerds kind of like us ourselves have like been talking about it for quite a while, but I think now the general public are really kind of more onto it. And I think some companies are being more transparent about it, whether it be because they're being forced to or not. So I'm interested to see like how this will change. And obviously Meta is kind of going through a bit of a metamorphosis right now, and they're trying to sort of get this metaverse thing going and whatnot. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens about all of this once it kind of all the dust settles.
I think that's an interesting point they bring up about the metaverse. I mean, it's the whole reason they renamed their company, right?
Yeah.
but part of this huge value loss, the huge market value loss for Meta, is because it missed its Q4 earnings, and a lot of that seems to have been due to their heavy investment in like the metaverse that isn't in VR, that isn't paying off right now. And I also think it's important to look at, I mean, some of this is, I mean, maybe not to this degree, but some of this can't really be blamed on Apple and its privacy changes. I mean, look at like the market often moves with the young, I find. And where younger consumers go, and where younger consumers, TikTok, they're on TikTok. They're ticking the talks and whatever that means. And I think it's apps like that. And, Facebook, despite like Instagram stories and things like that, Facebook doesn't have a TikTok competitor. Now, wait, 3 to 6 months and we'll see, Facebook or whatever. But they don't have that. And
I think Instagram stories are pretty close.
Yeah, Instagram Reels are the
thing.
Are essentially the TikTok.
Right.
And Instagram, to the chagrin of much, no, not chagrin. That's the opposite of what I'm trying to say. To the dismay of much, of plenty of photographers that used to love Instagram as a photography platform, has definitely gone to pushing video, and they have been for a while now.
Chagrin is right too.
Oh, is it? See,
yes.
Words, man, the language. There's so many of them to choose from.
How do you pick? How do you pick words? I've definitely been there, Luke. I've definitely been there.
But
yeah,
I think Instagram Reels is their closest, but I mean, I don't have any solid numbers to go on, but I don't believe it's as popular as TikTok with the younger audience, from what I can tell.
Yeah, I don't know numbers, but I do see a lot of crossover. I'll see a lot of people will post stories that lead to their Reels, or they'll post stories that lead to their TikToks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, I think people are mixing and matching.
Yeah. I often see stories that are clearly just taken from their TikTok, and
right,
because it still has like the TikTok, is it a music note and then their like username or whatever?
Yeah.
So I mean,
logo.
There'll be cross post, like an informal hacked together cross post, but
totally.
It's oh man. And I think it's things like that. I think it's emerging social networks like TikTok, and obviously, Karen, like you said, like Twitter and Snap, and what was the third one? It was Meta, Twitter, Snap, and
Pinterest.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They obviously, it was an overall massive drop for them, but their drops weren't as big as Facebook's. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah. I mean, Facebook had 169 billion loss of value. Snap lost 50 billion, Twitter lost 26 billion, and Pinterest lost 33 billion. Mm-hmm. But because Meta is so much bigger, even though it lost a lot more, proportionally, the other three lost much more than Meta did.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting. I think it was in their earnings call that Snap said that the iOS privacy changes didn't affect them as much as others.
Yeah, I think
Others.
I think Snapchat's just getting out competed. I think
Yeah.
its big moment has passed. I think the young people have moved on to TikTok from
Well,
Snapchat.
it's interesting. That might be the case, but I was talking to my sister not too long ago, and one of the things, so she used to work for a political party. I will not say which one. She used to work for a political party, and one of the things in terms of driving youth voter turnout that she found is that Snapchat was the place to go for young people. Still, it's just that
Even recently,
generations
like
do. Yeah,
like
in the
this
last
year.
like I don't know about this year specifically, but
I mean,
over
like
the last couple,
2021.
yeah, like 2021, 2020.
Voting age young people, though, right?
Right, like newly voting age young
Yeah.
people. This is the thing. People aren't like, my generation, it doesn't seem like has stayed on Snapchat. We've moved on. Maybe we've moved on to TikTok. I don't know. Or maybe we're
I
finally
think,
at the
Joe,
age where Facebook is
I,
the place to go.
I think your generation is primarily on Twitter.
Yeah, I think that's probably true.
That's true. We're still very heavy Twitter users
because we like the short bits, but we also like the text bits.
Yeah.
Video, we don't like to be on camera.
Yeah, but
Yeah, that's for
Twitter's
the
the place to
youngs.
show how clever you are.
Yeah, you know what,
With
Karen?
words.
I think you're absolutely right that is how people feel about Twitter. At
Twitter's the
least
place. Twitter's the place I share my Wordle score every day. That's Twitter.
right there. That's how you show how clever you are. You post Wordle score.
Sometimes I'm not clever. Sometimes it gets me.
Yeah, some days are less clever than others. But yeah, so that it's just new people kind of aging in and then aging out of Snapchat is what it seems like is happening there. But yeah, actually, not to get off topic too much, but Luke, you bring up Wordle, and my heart this week.
Oh, I know.
Oh, Karen, have you been sucked in by Wordle at all?
Oh yeah. I usually I don't think I've ever not gotten one, and I almost always get it in 4 or 5. I think maybe once I had to go to 6, and yesterday I got it in 2, which I
nice. I don't know that I've ever gotten it in 2. I have gotten it down to 3 every so often over the last few even.
Yeah, I've done that a few times as well. One thing I noticed that really bothers me is that when this particularly with women posting their score when it's really good, like 2 or 3, well, particularly women will say, "Oh, it was just luck," and I'm like, "No, it was not luck. It was skill.
It wasn't luck.
Take your credit."
Yeah. See,
interestingly
enough, I've gone far into the Wordle rabbit hole. When I discovered it, I discovered it a bit later, but I guess it was like around the newer year-ish, I think is when it started kind of blowing up, right? And I discovered what it was, and I've been deep down the Wordle rabbit hole. And I actually have I have a whole message thread with a bunch of friends who all play Wordle that's specifically about Wordle. And we'll text each other like little like very little secret hints about what the Wordle word was. And things like
I
that.
refuse to look at any hints.
That's the idea is like you don't look at it until you've done it for the day, but then you go back and look through the messages and see everybody's like clever little nods to it. Like no one's cheating, no one's trying to get a leg up. But funny about that is we were talking about like what really is kind of like the best Wordle score, because if you think about it, if you get it on the first try, that is luck, right? Like that's literally you're guessing a word that happens to be the word, right?
True.
So if you get it on the second try, it could be because you kind of got a lucky first word that you had a lot of clues, but there's obviously some deduction to be done there. So that is obviously like, I would put that at about maybe like 50-50. Maybe it's like 50 luck, 50 skill, depending on what your first word was. Right. Yeah. But your third word, I feel like third word is like the ultimate score. That's where like you've done 2 5-letter words already, potentially eliminated 10 letters or gotten the right vowels or however you want to strategize it. I feel like that's with a money spot. So I always try to aim for 3. I usually end up in 4, but I always try to aim for 3. I feel like 3 is like the ultimate apex of Wordle.
Yeah.
Wordle guesses.
No, I hear what you're saying. At that point, you're really working on it. It's not just luck.
Yeah.
I have to say, I think the my favorite that I've gotten so far is I've gotten one green letter on level 1, one green letter on level 2, like grayed out the rest of those levels, and then I got it on 3.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
My general strategy is on the first word to throw as many vowels as reasonable at at that row.
Yeah, that's typically like a lot of people will say, you know, some of the best starting words are like irate. So you get the I, the E, and the A. You also get R and T, which are very, very common words. Things like ado gets you
Oh,
like so many vowels. Audio is another
Oh,
good one for so many vowels.
A personal
that's
favorite one
good.
for me is Quake.
Yeah,
It's that U in there.
yeah, it gets the U, which is nice.
U-A-N-E.
I don't start with the same word every day. I find that a little boring.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I switch it
I
around too.
Yeah, but I've started with the same word sometimes, like not in a row, but you know, I've done irate a couple times. I've done raise, which is supposed to be another good one, things like that. Like I've done that a couple times, but I try to mix it up because I think it's fun, right? Like it's meant to be fun. But I agree.
I'm going to start with adieu tomorrow because I want to get all the vowels.
Oh,
That's the
that's
most
good.
vowels
Yeah,
I've
adieu is
seen in
good.
one word.
Adieu is good, and audio is good for that too. It doesn't get the U in there. Or no, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, audio is a
it's
good one. Audio is a good one for that.
Yeah, audio
Doesn't
is
get
the
the E.
same. Just
Doesn't get the
different
E.
letters.
Adieu has an
I'm going
E,
to switch
right?
between those two now.
Yeah, those are like
Because
a lot
the
of
vowels are key.
The
Yeah,
disappointment
100%.
I felt. Sorry to have turned this into a Wordle podcast, but the disappointment that I
Oh, I love it.
felt when a word doesn't, when like E gets grayed out, it's like, oh no, oh no.
I know. I've been doing a lot of words with S in, like, I'm starting with words that have S in it,
Mhm.
and then it's
Yeah.
grayed out, and I'm so sad because then I can't use
And
it.
this is why, you know,
Like
for
my
those who
favorite
don't
letter.
know, I mean, for those who don't know about the news this week and are wondering why we're just talking about Wordle, I mean, the New York Times bought Wordle for what it was
Yeah.
said low 7 figures. So congratulations
Yeah.
to Josh Wardle, creator of Wordle.
Which
And
it's hilarious that his name is Wardle and
well,
the
yeah,
game is Wordle.
I think that's probably where he
Yeah.
got it. But
and it's a
I,
game where it's like you change one letter. I don't know.
yeah,
It
it's,
strikes me as very funny.
but you know, I think we're all worried that the New York Times is going to ruin it. They've said it'll be free initially, which
is
come on, guys.
Yeah.
I
I know.
It was just supposed to be like this fun little bright spot of your day, and you're
Right,
gonna
like 3 minutes.
ruin it.
Yeah, but
You're gonna
capitalism.
I
ruin
like that there's only one puzzle per day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Because
it.
if there's more than one, I feel compelled to do all of them.
I mean, that
Yeah.
being said, though, I say that I love it, and me and my partner will actually play on our whiteboard in the evenings. We'll like
Oh,
make
that's
up
right.
our own.
Yeah.
We'll make up our own Wordle on the
Luke.
whiteboard.
That is so cute. That is
Yeah,
so
Luke was
cute.
telling us this week about the Wordle home game
Yeah,
that he and
the home
his
edition.
partner play.
Yeah, I thought you were
On a
going to put it in
whiteboard.
the background of the podcast today.
Yeah, let's
Maybe
So we can
sometime I
see
will.
your-
Maybe sometime.
yeah,
I
let's
will.
let's color up that background with like tiles of like green and yellow and grayed out squares.
Of my daily Wordle score. That'd be pretty funny.
There,
actually.
just change it.
What I-
change it
Yeah.
around.
What I'm hoping the New York Times does is keeps one game a day free. And then if people want more games, then you could pay for more.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think
That
we'll
seems fair to me.
probably. I would actually be surprised if they do something other than put Wordle behind their like crossword subscription. So if you're already subscribed to like the crossword, you get crossword,
Right.
you get the mini crosswords, and you get that spelling bee game. I say this as someone who is subscribed to that, and plays those games. So this doesn't. I would bet that Wordle goes behind that particular paywall. They won't make it. I doubt they'll actually make a new one for it.
Yeah. That would be my guess.
That
for
would
sure.
that would actually be corporate malfeasance at that point. So we made a new made a new paywall just for Wordle.
Yeah.
A game you can only play once a day,
Yeah.
and it's short. Why did you do that? Why did you decide that that's what you wanted to do? I would be
Mhm.
very confused just from a corporate direction standpoint.
But yeah, unfortunately, capitalism has struck again.
As it
And
does.
and somebody wants to make money off this, which I mean, I'm glad that the developer made some money off of
Yeah.
the creator, right?
I will
he sold
not-
it, which is good for him. Like he made something awesome and somebody wants it. It has value. That's great.
I will never begrudge someone getting their payday, especially if they're like a solo developer.
Yeah. And especially since if you don't know this, if you're players out there and you don't know this, he has said that he is working with the New York Times to ensure that your win streaks and your play streaks are still intact when it like officially sort of switches over. So that's good for people who keep track of that, aka me, and things like that. So, but yeah, I gotta say that remains initially free is definitely a bit of a dagger in the heart. I definitely have really loved it. It was something that like in the depths of winter, in the depths of like the holiday Omicron wave that we experienced in my city and just like not seeing anyone for Christmas and things like that, it was like a little bright spot every morning I got to look forward to. And I still kind of view it as that way. And it's still fun to like, I have so many people that I just talked to about Wordle, about like our scores and what the word was. And then we, you know, like it's become such a fun game. And I've always liked games like board gaming and like word games and stuff are a huge hobby of mine.
Somewhere I saw it was like stages of COVID, and it was like the first stage was like Tiger King and you know
like banana bread and
yes, that was on there, sourdough and all that stuff. And then the most recent one, of course, is Wordle.
We're at the Wordle stage of the pandemic.
Yeah,
yes, but exactly.
I mean, I'm happy for the guy. I'm happy he got his payday.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, no, for sure. I don't.
He's got to feed his family or himself.
Yeah, you know? I don't blame him at all. It's just like the New York Times. It's just like I know the New York Times is going to paywall it at some point, like for sure. They're not going to do it right away.
If they do, they do. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
There are other word games.
Yeah,
I'm sure that there will be 1,000 Wordle replacements.
Yeah, and I can always play it on the whiteboard at home. So I guess
that's right.
You always have the home
probably
game.
You're probably having more fun with that anyway. So
yeah. So but yeah, it's it's a little sad. It's making me a little sad. I'll say that.
I'm a little bummed about it, but at the same time, congratulations to Josh Wardle. So there is one more bit of news that I want to talk about because it does really just get to me. So Apple is currently lobbying against a bill that is, I think, before the U.S. Senate. I think it actually passed out of committee recently that Apple claims will result in malware and scams on the iPhone. This is what do they call this bill? I don't actually have the
Open Markets Act, the Open App Markets Act.
The Open App Markets Act.
Yeah, that's a wordful.
And the idea is on a basic level, this would allow side loading on Apple devices, and Apple obviously doesn't want that.
Right.
Because they want to, and you could point to money and say that's the reason Apple doesn't want that. That's certainly a factor. I'm not going to deny that.
Yeah.
I really do think it's mostly about control. Like for Apple, it comes down to control because Apple has been in the position where they're not in control of themselves and of their destiny. And they didn't like it. They almost died. Yeah. And then they got Steve Jobs back. There was a whole thing. And I actually think part of that was like part of this continued culture at Apple has a lot to do with Steve Jobs and the fact that Apple almost died. So they look at ceding any control whatsoever as a threat, which I get it. I mean, but I don't have to like it. You know?
Well, Apple's response is sideloading would enable bad actors to evade Apple's privacy and security protections by distributing apps without critical privacy and security checks. These provisions would allow malware, spam, scams, and data exploitation to proliferate.
So
it's like when they put it that way.
I'm going to go out here and say that Apple already has a system to deal with that. It's on macOS. It's called Gatekeeper.
Yeah.
And like, just because a system allows side loading, like if that's how you want to, some Mac users still think of it just as like downloading software. So
yeah,
that's another term for side loading.
Yeah,
just downloading software outside of the App Store.
Yeah,
Apple can still, like, if Apple were to get out ahead of something like this and plan for it, they could, still require that you need a signed certificate to run. They could architect the OS in a way that even if something doesn't have to go through App Store checks, it still needs certain features implemented to work properly on the device, like the app tracking transparency features. You could architect things in a way that would require those features to be implemented in your app in order to even run on the device, App Store or no. It doesn't have to be all or nothing the way that Apple
Right.
is presenting it. And I think it feels extremely disingenuous for Apple to take the stance that this will absolutely harm security on the iPhone. From what I mean, there's nothing that says that Apple has to get rid of the App Store if side loading is present. And I think most people who have Apple, iPhones and iPads will stick with the App Store because it's easy, it's convenient, it's safe. Although we can, smarter people than me can delve into why Apple's claims of safety on the App Store aren't all they're cracked up to be.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's disappointing, especially when there are just categories of apps that Apple flat out refuses to approve. And having a system built completely closed like they do prevents people from experimenting in new and interesting ways on this extremely vibrant and popular platform.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Every time I hear about that, and I mean, we've been hearing about it a lot, right? For, Epic and, Epic versus Apple and all this stuff. We've been hearing about, the App Store and, it's kind of stranglehold on developers and things like that. And every time I think about it, it's hard to I agree with you, Joe. I think it's about control, but I also think it's about money as everything always kind of ends up to be. I think, Apple wants its payday. It wants developers, it wants to be able to make its cut off of, apps making money on its platform. And I think that there's room for that. You know what I mean? I'm not somebody who thinks, it's greedy for Apple to take a cut of services that they're providing, which is a whole access to a giant platform that people can access and things like that. There's value in that. And there is a place for, cuts to be taken from there. I mean, every game store does it too. It's not like Steam and Epic don't take their cuts from developers as well off their stores. But I also am I don't like side loading, which is literally just downloading software. Which we've been doing since computers were born, pretty much. I don't think I feel like, a lot of their privacy, their hype about how bad the privacy would be if something like this was to happen is definitely overblown. And I think it comes from a bit of like the lack of control, but also I think they are worried about their, I know Apple makes Apple makes a crap ton of money. They, oh man, sorry. Now I've lost my train of thought. They make a ton of money, obviously. And, but I think they are worried about a revenue stream going down for them for sure.
Yeah.
And I think it would if this becomes, like a full blown kind of thing. And there's just a bunch of side loading.
But isn't it Apple's device? I mean, you don't expect your grocery store down the street to accept any product that anybody wants to put on its shelf, or
I would argue it's
not to take a portion of every, slice of every loaf of bread and, everything they sell.
I would argue that once it leaves Apple's store, it becomes mine. And it's about, it's about how easy is it for a user to use their device in a way that they choose. Like, how much say should Apple get, and how hard should they be able to make it for me to say sideload apps once I've, forked over the money,
Right. But I mean, you don't have to buy an Apple product.
Yeah, but I prefer a lot of the apps that are already on the system. It just, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't feel like it should be Apple's call what I ultimately put on the phone. And I also don't think that that it should, because I could theoretically jailbreak my device or
Yeah,
install a
you
third-party
could.
app store, but that comes with a lot of inherent risks on its own, and it also
Yeah.
comes with a lot of inconsistency.
Right. Well, but that's exactly what Apple's trying to prevent is the inconsistency and all the
Yeah,
potential for things to go wrong that
but
you would have if you could
but
just sideload
that's the
any
thing.
app.
That's the thing. You would be taking that risk on. The thing that Apple would be forced to do is just make it essentially easier for me to make that choice myself. No one's. I don't think this bill is telling them to get rid of the App Store. I think it's just telling them
No.
you have to do both, and that's the issue. Like if should I not be able to download software through Safari on my Mac?
Listen, I just feel like it's Apple's product. They should be able to do what they want with it. And if consumers don't like it, there's plenty of other options out there.
Not ones that. I mean, the
I
thing
know
is,
you want what you want, but
yeah,
Apple wants what
exactly.
Apple wants too.
Yeah, I think, and I guess the question is whose want is ultimately more important, the consumer or the company that makes the product? I mean, Steven in the comments, I mean, that is a worry. I just think that it's not Apple's job to parent its users. I think most of the people who are buying iPhones are adults that can make decisions for themselves, even if they're stupid ones, even if they're very stupid decisions.
But one of the reasons I like Apple products so much is because I like being in Apple's little walled garden.
And you can stay there. That's the thing. You can
I
stay there. It's not like things are gonna force themselves onto your phone.
I think what
True.
I part of me worries about, like, to sort of play devil's advocate a little bit, part of me that what worries about, because I lean more toward what Joe is saying, but I do also kind of worry, like, if this was to go through and they have to allow side loading or different app stores or however you want to put it, do all the big developers, because the other thing is there's a lot of inconsistency between what the App Store offers in terms of big developers and small developers, right? And small developers definitely have a harder time in the App Store getting their apps noticed and things like that because of, you can spend money to advertise on the App Store and all sorts of things, right? So I understand that there's inequality there, but I wonder if all the big developers kind of leave and do their own kind of side loading to sort of avoid their Apple's cut of their subscriptions or price or whatever. I am curious if how annoying that might make the experience for me when I'm trying to update apps and do other things, right? Like if I have to go to different, sections all the time, if I have to go to so-and-so's website to go get my
Right.
Pixelmator or my whatever.
Exactly.
And
You're
I do.
exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's
And I
what
worry
Apple's
about
trying
that
to
experience.
prevent because
Yeah.
after when that happens, when you have to go to 5 different places to update all your apps, you're going to be like, gosh, this iPhone is just a pain in the behind. And you're going to have a bad user experience and you're going to start thinking negatively of Apple.
Yeah.
Do you see why Apple doesn't want that?
Yeah. And I see that. I see that argument. I'd say that's for me, say this was to happen tomorrow, which it's not, but say it was to happen tomorrow and all of a sudden there's a bunch of different app stores or side loading or whatever on iPhone. I would definitely hope that everything that I'm using or whatever sticks on the App Store. And I would rather just kind of go through them because it's it's convenient and it makes sense. And
It's the Apple experience.
Yeah, exactly. So I see both your points, and it's I don't know where I like to think that there's a happy middle ground, or maybe not happy, but there's a middle ground in everything. There's a middle ground in everything, but I don't know exactly where that is with this.
I mean, I think it's the sweet solution that Steve Jobs announced in summer 2007, where everything's just web apps.
Oh boy.
And then there's no app store. You don't have to worry. There's no app store.
Yeah.
It's all just trash.
Yeah, so it's definitely an interesting debate, and it has been for a while. And it's always like every now and then I'll look at it and I'll be like, no, Apple's right. We should maybe like, they should have a little bit control over their, what goes on their systems or whatever. And then I'll switch back like the next day. I'll be like, no, that doesn't make sense. Developers should have some onus over where their software goes. And I'm just like, I can't seem to make up my mind. It's like there's really good arguments on both sides. There really is.
All right, let's move on to a couple of well, really a rumor. About the or actually a couple of rumors about the iMac Pro. So first, let's start with Mark Gurman. I would say fairly reliable Mark Gurman. Everyone got caught by the Apple Watch Series 7 design last fall, but we won't hold that against them. This one, I probably believe this is about the iMac Pro. The iMac Pro is coming theoretically later this year. Now seems like maybe a late summer arrival for the Mac Pro, but if Gurman is to be believed, we now have a better idea what it looks like, and it's, kind of to be expected. Better chips, and it's a bigger version of the current M1 iMac, essentially. Which, yay, good. If that could include the colors, Apple, that would be super.
No way.
We're not going to do colors. There's the bill that needs to go before the Senate. Like, let's legislate that Apple has to be more colorful.
Yeah.
Apple has, big
with its
bright,
Pro products.
Yeah. The Pro.
The consumer level stuff already plenty colorful. I have a red iPhone right here.
Yeah.
But
the Wonderful Colors Pro Device Act. There you go. There's the name.
There we go. Wonderful. We need to find a way to make it a word. We need to turn it into an acronym somehow.
Right. Yeah.
Take a week, work on that, Luke, and come back to us.
I will.
All right. So I think the idea is that, we've heard so much about varying things about what the size is going to be. People seem to be pretty settled now that it's going to be a 27-inch computer, which, okay, but what if we went to 30 or 32 there, Apple? Wouldn't that be Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be fun if we just went giant?
Especially since they upped the 21.5 to 24 on the M1 iMac. I definitely expected and certainly was hoping that the iMac Pro would get a bit of a bump. It's not that 27 inches is to laugh at. It's a very nice screen. It's a very nice size. But I feel like, if they really went, if pros are looking at this as something to do more heavy work on and stuff, like bigger screens are pretty much almost always bigger screens or multiple screens are pretty much always welcome. Right. So I found that interesting that they would maybe stick to the same size, especially when they upgraded the small one. Cause like usually when they upgrade one of them, they kind of usually upgrade both a little bit, maybe not necessarily at the same time. So maybe there's something to say about that, but like, I'm curious, and we keep expecting, to see like screens to get bigger and bigger. So it's interesting that, like on phones and various things. So it's interesting to see that they might not do that in this case.
Well, at some point, there's a limit to how big you want your screen to be. Just like with phones, at some point,
totally.
You don't want something that is so big it doesn't fit in your hand. People's desk space is also limited. At some point, you don't want something that's going to completely take over your desk or be bigger than your desk.
Wall-sized iMac. Wall-sized iMac. Mount it on the wall.
Yeah, mount it on the wall.
It's just Fahrenheit 451, but more interactive.
Right. So I think unless you're going to give people a choice of sizes, at some point you have to stop making them bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, true. For sure. And there's plenty of different screen sizes, and obviously if people like ultra wide, those can get really big in terms of how wide they are. But it was just interesting to me to hear that now it seems like it's just going to be 27 inch like it has been in the past. It's just like I wasn't quite expecting 32. I was thinking, they did like a essentially 3-inch bump on the small version. So they do like a 3-inch bump and make it like a 30-inch. For anyone who says 3 inches is nothing, trust me, when you put them side by side or when you work on them, it's quite a bit.
No, I don't think it's nothing. I don't think it's nothing. I just think there's a sort of a limit to how big you can go, just in terms of the physical space that it takes. I don't know what
Yeah.
that limit is. I assume Apple's done some kind of focus groups or something to figure that out, but
Yeah.
And the other thing that the other sort of rumor that's out this week about the iMac Pro is that, I mean, there had been thought that it might be this spring or even around WWDC, but it does sound like maybe August, September, probably September, given that's sort of product announcement season for Apple. September is going to probably be the time that we see that. This is from display analyst Ross Young. He's expecting panels start shipping to Apple in June for the display of this iMac. So, oh well. I still do expect, M1. I wouldn't be surprised if this was like an M1 Max only computer rather than having M1 Pro or M1 Max.
Yeah, especially
Maybe-
for their all-in-ones, and I mean, I kind of assume maybe it's a bad assumption, but like when people buy an all-in-one, one of the reasons why I buy an all-in-one is that it's all-in-one, and I don't have to worry about like I get they'll have storage options and they might have like a whatever, but their processor options have usually on their all-in-ones are usually pretty much just the same one processor. I don't think they've ever done multiples.
So you've been able to get like Core i7, Core i5, i7, or i9.
Sure, right.
But one of the things you got to remember is even if you pick the M1 Max on the MacBook Pro, you still have a couple of options. You can have a slightly lower core count versus a larger core count.
Yeah,
you've got the level of GPU that you want to get, and then RAM and storage. So basically the stuff that you've been selecting previously, it's just all like, what version of the M1 Max do you want?
Yeah, true. But that wouldn't surprise me. I like, it seems like if to go from, to go from just the M1 iMac, if you really want to make it like a good upgrade, that I'm assuming is also going to come with quite, it's going to be quite a bit more expensive than the M1 iMac, that like the M1 Max would make sense. And yeah, you're right. They still have core options to choose from for sure. And you'll have your storage options as always, of course. Yeah, so that'd be interesting. I think I could definitely see it as like, especially since it's supposed to be that like real pro device, kind of all in one, kind of replacing the iMac Pro before, which was quite a bit more powerful than just the standard iMac when it came out. So I wouldn't be surprised, and we know it's not going to be M2. I mean, we don't know, but it's likely not going to be M2. They're still kind of working with the M1 architecture, it seems. So.
All right, we're gonna wrap up the show there for this week because I have an announcement to make. Next week is going to be my last show on the iMore show, because it's going to be my last day at iMore. I'm moving on to parts unknown. Karen, don't look too sad.
I am sad.
Yeah.
So I wanted to thank everyone who's ever shown up and watched us live, especially over the last about 2 years that I've been on the show. And I always do appreciate seeing the vibrant discussions that come up in our live comments. A big old thank you to everyone who listens later in their podcatcher of choice. And also to Jim Metzendorf, who always took whatever audio we threw at him and turned out something great. It was a hard decision, but it's the right one for me. I want to thank Karen for being my steadfast co-host over the last year, especially. It's been a time of transition around these parts, and it's been great podcasting with you, Luke. Between you and Karen and some other people as well, it's going to be a great show going forward. I have the utmost confidence in all of you, and so I will see you all next week one last time.
I will not be here next week, and it's not because I'm protesting, and it's not because I'm leaving, but it's because I'm going to be in an airport, and I don't think I'll be able to find any place quiet enough to podcast from. But I will be with you in spirit, and then I will be back as normal the following week.
Yeah, so don't worry. You're not losing both of us in 1 week. That's not how this is going down. I will say, Craig, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going there. I'm on a different path now. So again, thanks everybody for everything, and I will see you next week. And until then, this has been the iMore Show. Bye, everybody.